Before we go any further, I want to show you guys a clip. This was the immediate reaction to the Golden State Warriors trading for Andrew Wiggins over a year ago.
D'Angelo Russell is going to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Andrew Wiggins.
It's a huge victory for the Timberwolves. A huge victory.
Now, why did I show you that clip? Because this has become a very common theme over the last few seasons. The Warriors make a decision that people question, and then a year later, those same people that questioned the decision are forced to eat their own words. Now, it's still too early to say the same thing about the drafting of Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, even though when Kuminga is doing things like this in the NBA and the G League, it's hard not to be excited.
Just a little reminder at 19 of what's coming.
No, his head was at the rim. He just got up there and hovered.
Hey, here we go. Oh, we're not gonna. That's not gonna stop him!
And right now, things are looking pretty good in terms of Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody's development, and I'll talk about that. But there were a lot of question marks over why the Warriors would choose to draft two guys like Kuminga and Moody with Steph, Draymond, and Klay in their primes. Just for transparency, I was one of those guys that questioned the decision. I was wrong. I think so, at least. It's still early. But I think there is enough reason to suggest the Warriors have a clear plan in place that involves these two guys and the rest of the young core that is going to leave this franchise on top for a very, very long time. Look, I'm sorry if you're sick of the dominance, but I don't know if it's going anywhere anytime soon. By now, you guys have seen the title of the video. Now, before I talk about why the Warriors are always one step ahead, let me just show you one more clip. Just one more clip.
They go with it. We are having some shockers here.
Is he in the crowd?
Jordan Poole.
I don't even think he's at his own table.
Golden State as a franchise with their front office has done so many great things over the past half decade and beyond here. I don't see that. To me, Jordan Poole was not a top 50 prospect.
Maybe the worst pick in the draft so far.
There we go.
And there's nothing against Jordan Poole. No offense, dude.
Now, what separates Golden State from other franchises? Well, apart from having the greatest point guard of all time and arguably the greatest defender of all time, they've got those guys and Klay Thompson. What separates them apart from those things is the fact that the Warriors value fit and play style incredibly highly. If we look back at the Andrew Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell trade, obviously it looks like an absolute robbery now because the Warriors ended up with not only Wiggins, but Kuminga as well. But it should have been apparent as to why Wiggins would work in Golden State. In Minnesota, he had shown the flashes of what he could do defensively, and Golden State managed to turn those flashes of defense into a consistent high-level defender who is now in contention for being an all-NBA defender, whilst honing his offense to become more efficient with improved shot selection. And obviously that's the byproduct of the Warriors' incredible ball movement, but still, the Warriors recognized that Wiggins would fit their system. And at the time when the trade happened, a lot of people looked at the trade like this, when in reality, they should have been looking at the trade like this. Now, maybe all of this seems really obvious, but you know what wasn't obvious? The drafting of Jordan Poole at pick 28, which is why I showed you that clip previously. There were numerous people shocked by Jordan Poole declaring for the draft, and even more people shocked that the Warriors drafted him at 28. But the Warriors had a plan in place, and that plan, like so many of the Warriors' plans, was executed incredibly well through the combination of NBA time and G League time, which helped him develop into the player we see today, which is an emerging star. Yes, Jordan Poole is a guy that will be knocking on the door of all-star appearances very soon. They drafted Jordan Poole not because he was the most talented player in the draft. They saw a guy that fit the system, his shooting, his off-ball movement, his handling, and that added playmaking. Where some people saw a 13.3 assists per game in his second year coming out of college, the Warriors saw a guy that was perfect for their system. So when I talk about the Warriors being a step ahead, those are some examples. But this year, they might have outdone themselves. We know about Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, or if you don't, here's a little reminder.
With the rookie Cam Thomas on. Oh!
Now, both of these guys have already shown the potential they have, but what the Warriors have done is incredibly smart. A lot of us looked at the draft as a way for the Warriors to use those assets immediately in a flip for a more established player. But what we forgot is this team has the ability to make moves in free agency unlike a lot of other teams, which would allow Golden State to pick up one of the highest upside prospects in the draft in Jonathan Kuminga without having to worry about his minutes being needed early in his career. Now, I want to give you guys a choice. You have option 1. You can trade away your best young players for a guy like Miles Turner or even Pascal Siakam. Both of these guys were linked with Golden State in the offseason, and Turner has recently been linked with them as well. Or what you can do is draft 2 guys with incredible upside that fit the timeline of Jordan Poole and James Wiseman drafted the 2 years prior, whilst still bringing in veteran role players that will help your team win right now. This is important. Otto Porter Jr., Andre Iguodala, Nemanja Bjelica, and Gary Payton II. 4 crucial role players, 1 off-season. 4 guys that were carefully chosen because of what they bring the team. The Warriors had a chance to keep Avery Bradley over Gary Payton II. A lot of people would have chosen to keep Avery Bradley. He's an established player. He's been around for a lot longer. They chose Gary Payton II. We've seen how that's turned out.
Quickly up to Payton. Oh! Do it with feeling!
But these decisions that they've made, Otto Porter Jr., bringing him in, someone who had lost his reputation as a good role player because of injuries and a big contract, bringing him in for $2.4 million was genius. A versatile defender that has shot over 40% from 3 throughout his career. We know about Iguodala, we know about Bjelica, but these moves weren't just smart for now, but they're smart for the future, because what you have in these 4 players is 4 guys that are going to help you right now. There's 4 guys that are good for the team, and also 4 guys that are on 1-year contracts. Now, what does this mean? Well, you've just got options. You've got Kuminga, Moody, and Wiseman, who you can all develop throughout the year. Next year, with these guys on 1-year contracts, you can choose to have Kuminga, Moody, and Wiseman all take the place of these guys and be significant role players on the team. Or you can continue to develop them slowly and pick up more free agents similar to the ones they picked up last season and do the same thing. Or you can trade them away without having lost any value. In fact, I know a lot of people think Jonathan Kuminga's value has gone up despite barely playing. Looking back on the Warriors' moves later on, they always seem obvious, but at the time, they're anything but. With people clamoring over the idea of bringing in a more established, maybe even a star player, getting rid of all your young players at the cost of that, Golden State instead said, let us get some fantastic role players on cheap minimum deals while still bringing in high upside rookies that we can develop, which gives us options going forward. And that's exactly what they've done. I mean, come trade deadline, they could still make a trade. They're still in a position of power, and that's exactly why the Warriors have remained at such a high level. And going forward, they've got a young core that is equal to some of the best young cores in the league, while still having a competitive team. No, not a competitive team, a championship level team. And that's why the Warriors are always one step ahead, because of these kind of moves.